There's what we call THC. THC is tetrahydrocannabinol. It is the compound lekwenza ukuthi ube high. So anything that is below 0.3% of THC is classified as hemp because it's below 0.3 THC. So it can make you high. Yes, Masapema, back in the days, okay, I used to, back in the days, experimenting, as many other young people have experimented. But back in the days, you know, I'm from the Eastern Cape. So back in the days, Mahambu Yoteng and then Mabuya, this thing is not doing anything. We didn't know. Kandi is the hemp. It's the hemp. It's useless. Inzanga is useless. It's the hemp, that one. So hemp, it's actually cultivated a lot for various reasons. For example, industrial use and other things. And then number two, the global cannabis market value. I want to talk about the global cannabis market value. You know, a cannabis value from 2002. 2002 is not 10 years ago. It's just a year ago. It was valued at $27.7 billion US dollars. It is going to grow to about $82.3 billion US dollars by 2027. So the question is, in 2027, uzabe sayibhema or uzobe uyi millionaire through it? Asikhuluma into serious bafethu. Asikhuluma into serious. Yabona? So the question is, why is cannabis so expensive? Why is cannabis worth a lot of money? Because I think that's the question now. Now that siyazi ikhona intsango ngaPhumalanga ngayithola, ngaya kuphi ngayithola, umuntu ufuna ukuyibhema, but why is it expensive? Why does it have such a value, cannabis? Ukuthi nje siloko sithi hayi zingishayile manje azingishayile izingishayile yes emfethu ngicabanga ukuhamba ezingishayile nomunye ucabanga ukuhamba ezokushayile zingishayile mfethu sengicabanga ukuhamba after an hour emfethu ucabanga ukuhamba ezokushayile nomunye zingishayile sengicabanga ukuhamba. Let's go beyond that. Let's go beyond that and look at the value of a cannabis. Why is cannabis this important? It leads us to our third point, the cannabis uses. The uses. Umsebenzi wenzango kanti yini umsebenzi wenzango? Ungayibhemela ukuthi uzophasa imaths hayi. So, a cannabis basically has different compounds. There's compounds in a cannabis like your CBL, your THC, your THCV, your CBC. These are different types of compounds that are found in Zango, besides ukuthi zishaye. Yeah, these are solutions. What you see here is what we call pharmaceutical stuff. Look at your neighbor and say, this is pharmaceutical stuff, man. It isn't as heavy. His stuff is heavy. His stuff is heavy, guys. Yeah. Now we are talking about pharmaceutical stuff. So these are different compounds that are found in cannabis. So with cannabis, Intsango relieves pain. Intsango helps with epileptic seizures. Intsango helps with Alzheimer. As abantu abadala babugugile uthola ukuthi sometimes you lose umqondo. And in elokishini seniyafuna ukumshisa nithi uyaloya. Yabona aphuma endlini engagcokanga uluza umqondo nina senifuna ukumshisa elokishini nithi uyaloya. It's Alzheimer, it's a disease. Akusiwuloya. It helps with Alzheimer's, improves heart health, enhances appetite, treats inflammatory bowels diseases such as ulcers. Leonto, yabona ulcers, insango yawasiza. Increases sleep longevity. Ufuna ukulala insango uyayisebenzisa. Hayi ngokuyibhema, asimene kahle ngokubhema. Ngizokutshela ukuthi uyisebenzisa kanjani. Ngiyazwa lapha sokunothi hey kumele ngiyithole tonight. Hayi. Wo. Hayi ngokuyibhema. It relieves arthritis, discomfort, it reduces glaucoma. So there's a lot of diseases that insango is able with. You see? So kushuthi insango is a solution. Yabona? Look at your neighbor and say, uvula masango lento. Ithi uvula masango lento. Yeah, it's tough, listen. All right. Now that we know ukuthi insango has all these compounds that can be used to make this. Now, how do we get into that? Now, if you are getting into farming of insango, cultivation of medicines, generally, even without just insango, mara just the cultivation of medicines. Now we are talking about different farming. All right. All right. So cannabis, it still goes on to say cannabis is being studied for further like PTSD, pain relief, epileptic seizures, weight control, Crohn's, asthma, you name it. So which is now the licensing. It's my fourth point, licensing. Now there are three key factors. Three that are very important within the space. Kuna standard, kuna processes. EGACP. EGACP stands for Good Agricultural Collection Practices. Good Agricultural Collection Practices. You get it? So if you're cultivating something compliant with the GACP, especially izinto ezidliwayo, especially things that are consumed for GACP, is basically the reason. So that's what basically the GACP is about. And then we move to point number 5. Number 5 is, how can I get involved? We'll just move GACP. Okay, in fact, in the EU GMP as well, in the GMP, what we call good manufacturing practices, kune standard esibizwa ngokuthi EU GMP. For example, if you want to cultivate insango yakho and you want to export it to countries in Europe, you need to meet that standard. It's called the EU GMP. EU GMP is the highest certification. So these are the things that we specialize in at ISO management to make sure that we take care of all the processes. Zoguti, how it's cultivated, we design our facilities, and then we develop, we also construct, build a facility. And then, so how do you get involved? Let's get to that question. Iti mzala. Look at your neighbor and say, mzala, how do I get involved? It is ngena kanjani mzala. Akasibeke stars. Iti akasibeke stars. All right. First, I think, let me talk about what we call the cannabis for private use. Gonna bill, the private use bill in South Africa. Every time, yes, I go to places, but it's legal, man. I want you to know what is the legal framework within Inzam. There's what we call the private use bill. A private use bill is now using Inzam in your private space as an adult, because that is regulated as well. So a private use bill basically says that you cannot sell Inzango unless you have a license. Number one, Inzango in South Africa is not legal to be sold to someone who does not have a license. When you're selling in South Africa, you sell it to someone that has a license only. You understand? You're selling it to someone, whether you are a cultivator and you are selling it to a company that processes it to medicine. And if you are going to buy in Zango, it puma a prescription with chemist. So you must go to a doctor. If you are a cannabis patient, you must register and become a patient, and then your doctor must issue a prescription. Then you can go to the counter with chemist at Uting Zoteng in Zang. Na prescription. That's how it works. Now, as an adult, obviously, umthetho ekuvumela ukuthi uyisebenzise mara senzo kanjani. Very important. Now, how you work private use bill, it says an adult is allowed to have at least 4 plants. At least 4 plants. Don't go beyond 4 plants. Because mama ngithola unensi uzobosho. At least you must have 4 plants. So if it's 2 adults in a household, then at least you can have 8 plants. If need to. Ongathi ngoba nihlala ni5 manje uthi kumele sibe na 16, you're not allowed to go beyond 8. So you're not allowed to go beyond 8. Secondly, you're not allowed to go beyond 1.2 kilograms of dried cannabis endlini. If unenzango yakho akumelanga idlule ku 1.2 kilograms as a family. Uthi siyayithatha for a flu, siyayithatha for a pain, fine. Mara mayingadlula ku 1.2 kilograms kusho ukuthi uyayidayisa. Uzoboshwa. All right, are we together? Yeah, that is how private use bill works. Then Mohamba as well, when you're walking in the street, you must not carry inzango that is beyond 100 grams. You must not have more than 100 grams of inzango. So ngeke sihlangana now uphethe school bag song. Uzoboshwa. This school bag song, how? All right. Then basically that's the legal framework, a private use. And then we have hemp and the license. So when hlangana nomuntu athi une permit, that means that person is cultivating what? Hemp. A permit isebenza kwa hemp, ne? And the hemp can be used for wellness and industrial purposes. So a hemp basically is the one that does not have a strong THC. Okay? Because the THC phela is a drug. So hemp is the one that does not have that. So you can cultivate hemp. It's easier to get a permit. It's not as strict as the second one that I'm going to talk about now. So with the hemp, you can cultivate it. You can cultivate hemp and you can use it obviously to make things like oil. You can do things like sleeping, like gummies, for example, for sleep and so on, for management of your pain, and all those kind of things, for wellness. So it's really within the wellness. And then when it comes to medical cannabis, the authority there is South African Health Products Regulatory Authority, ISAPRA. So you need the license for that. So that one is quite very stringent. It's quite strict to get that license, but it's possible. You can get it. You can get it. All right. So it's possible for you to become a cannabis entrepreneur. I know that you're sitting here and you're thinking, hey, it's difficult, the license is expensive, it's a lot of money, and so on and so forth. But it's possible. In South Africa, the government has made funding available. If this is what you want to do, I want to encourage you and say, you can do it. I want to encourage you as I close and say, you can do it. It's possible to do it. You can start small and you will succeed. Now, I've said these 5 points. Number 1, as this. We described it, cannabis indica, cannabis sativa, and the ruderalis. We also talked about the global value of cannabis, and we said it's important to understand the value of cannabis. And we talked about, number 3, we talked about the cannabis uses, which are very medicinal. So there's a lot that is still to be done in cannabis. Number 4, we talked about licensing. We talked about the GACP, the GMP, and as well as obviously the admin, the ancillary. And number 5, we talked about how can you get involved, and nothing that is impossible to someone that does greatly. There's a story of an eagle. I listened to a speaker over the weekend, and it reminded me of a story that I know, but he didn't tell the story the way I know it. So I'm going to tell you the story the way I know it. But anyway, it says there was a hunter. This hunter stumbled upon an eagle's egg. So he went and he found an egg of an eagle. So he took this egg home and he had it hatched with the chickens. So it was hatched, obviously after around 21 days, and then it grew with the chickens. So he fed it together with the chickens. So the eagle grew and learned all the chicken behaviors. You know what the chickens do? They cluck, cluck, they will scratch the soil, picking up seeds, picking up worms. So the eagle also learned all the chicken behaviors, the clucking, the scratching. But the eagle kind of like grew bigger than the chickens. Not only that, but it looked different from the chickens. And somehow, the eagle was also not very satisfied with the food that it was eating amongst the chickens. So the eagle began to think deeply, and began to think that maybe I am different. Even the food was not tasting nice. Somehow, even the talons were much sharper than the chicken's talons. When it's scratching the surfaces, it's a bit difficult. The beak is bent. It's difficult to pick up worms or to pick up the seeds and all that. So it was just dissatisfied. And the eagle began to think that I've got to find a meaning. But one day, as they were in their usual routine, this eagle saw another eagle carrying a live snake. And the eagle said, maybe I'm an eagle. And it said it loud. And the chicken said, you, an eagle, you grew up here. You can not go any further. You can't even fly. And you think you're an eagle. Do you know how dangerous the snakes are?